Welcome back to the Nonprofits, the Pearl Clutchers. Oh, excuse me, the lawmakers in Iowa are pushing through some really hateful laws because, I don't know, trans people are icky. The bigotry train keeps tooting along. Our friend Tracy has another story from the Friendly Atheist. So, Tracy, let's hear your take.
Children are an easy group for politicians to use. Nearly everyone cares about them, and they have this convenient property of not really understanding politics and being, in most cases, years away from being able to participate in the conversation. Anything can be said to be for the children, and as long as whoever you're talking to already agrees with you, it's basically a slam dunk tactic to appeal to them. Which I would imagine is why Iowa Representative Step Holt held them up as his chief constituents in his defense of this rollback of civil rights from trans individuals. This bill was signed into law on February 28th, and barring any legal appeal from the judiciaries or the federal government specifically, which isn't likely to come, in my estimation, given the current administration, come July 1 in Iowa, gender identity will no longer be a protected class from discrimination. This story is from Time by Hannah Fingerhut App on February 27th, 2025.
So, Tracy, tell the people how fast this bill went through.
The next day, it went to the governor to be signed, and by the next day it was signed. And there was all this like, oh, is she gonna sign it? Is she not? And then she did. And so it was like no time to be suspensed. It just happened.
Great. Just great. Like, I remember we say, like, the wheels of justice are very slow. It seems that the wheels of discrimination move like super quick. Everybody like just snips through, and we're just not going to admit that trans people are a thing in the state anymore. So you mentioned in your article about like bathrooms and sports, and this was the thing that they got everybody up in the uproar about. Why do you think this was the thing that got the lawmakers panties in a twist? I really would like to hear your opinion on that.
Because they're not actually concerned with trans people, Helen. They don't.
What?
They're not actually concerned with trans people. They're concerned with cis men predators.
That can't be true.
They're concerned with cis men predators, and they're concerned with cis men who want to go beat up women in sports. They're not concerned with trans women who want to live their lives as women and be accepted as women, because it is more believable to them that a cis man in the age-old mission of sitting next to women while they poop is going to go through years of discrimination and tons of changes to their social life and a whole bunch of new hormones coursing through their body, all for that big payoff. All for that huge payoff of punching a woman in the face, which he could have done without all that stuff. It is not required that a person be trans to go into a bathroom and assault somebody. It is not required that a person be trans to go and beat up a female boxer. If you want to beat up a female boxer and you think you can, I welcome you to go try. Like,
I'm sure ridiculous. They would too.
They're not actually concerned with these problems that they bring up in relation to the people that they're talking about with it. They're throwing this big hazard in the way as if we haven't figured out the bathroom situation in our society yet.
So are you saying that people that will assault people in bathrooms are just assholes?
Yeah. They're just bad people.
And they're just bad people. And also, don't we have a whole thing about gender science and trans people in sports? That actually is a thing that people are doing. We've been doing it for a couple decades now.
The Olympic Commission has been doing this for decades, and no one said anything until it was a huge problem in America. Yeah.
Yeah, and also too, isn't it weird that it's around trans women and not trans men in these certain situations?
Trans men aren't real. It's just cis men who want to go assault women. That's all it is.
That's right. And also too, doesn't this just kind of stink of misogyny?
It is. It is misogyny, but it's also sort of a self-own. It's kind of a self-own if you think about it. Like, it's like, well, no, men are so dangerous that we can't. It's a problem. It is misogyny, and it's also a self-own. I agree wholeheartedly, Helen.
Men are so dangerous you can't walk in the woods with a bear.
Yeah. So, Kelley, why do you think that the Civil Rights Act was not enough to stop this bill from getting through?
Well, it didn't stop it from getting through because it didn't have a legal challenge when it was getting pushed through.
Weird.
So now,
like a day?
wait, because you can't challenge a law until it becomes a law, right? So now that it is a law, it can be legally challenged. And I would expect it to be legally challenged as well. I don't know that something like this could actually hold up in the courts normally. Again, I mentioned this earlier in the week that, we've seen a whole change in the federal court system. So over the last 8 years, so we might not have the same interpretation of the law as we might have had 30 years ago. So I'm not real confident that the courts will hold this up. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I'm pretty damn sure they will. I'm at like 80%. But that's why I think that the Civil Rights Act hasn't stopped it, because you can't stop something until it becomes a law. So if that makes any sense.
And I think that's a really good nuance for people to understand, that it cannot be challenged until it becomes a law, so they can push it through like in a day, as Tracy said.
Right.
Oh, Tracy, you're muted, honey.
It's like you can't. Otherwise, it'd be like being thought police, right? I'm gonna bring a lawsuit against what you're thinking about. You just can't do that. So.
Well, thank you, Kelley.
Tracy, go ahead.
That explanation you gave actually helps quell a lot of my anxiety. Not all of it. There's still a lot there, but it quelled a good amount.
Well, good. I'm glad I was able to help just a little bit. So
now that we've established that, do you think there is going to be pushback?
Yeah.
Now that it's a law? Yeah. So because there was a lot of protests when this thing was going to be pushed through the state Senate in Iowa, and there was a lot of people. There was a lot of protests. There was a lot of people saying like, "This is hate bills. You're harming," especially from if I as a parent of a trans kid, I would be standing right there going like, this is going to harm my child. And also just being a decent human being. Like, even if it doesn't affect someone you immediately know, you're just sitting there going like, hey, hate bills are not okay. If you're there standing there going, this is not okay, and you're standing against this, it still went through. There's going to be pushback. What do you... No, go ahead, Kelley.
At least we have at least one person within the Iowa state government that did stand up. This Mr. Bisignano.
Yeah, go ahead and talk about that.
Bisignano.
No.
I mean, he did step forward and stand up for more marginalized people in his own community. And I think that's great. And that's what it's going to take. It's going to take people standing up to people like Steve Holt. I had such a hard time not doing Steve Holt. And that's probably what it's going to take, is more people standing up. And I'm not saying everybody needs to go out there and stand up, but that is what it's going to take. So. And
that being said, there's always money in the banana stand.
Yes. Yeah. There's always money in the banana stand.
So Eli, what do you, you mentioned some stuff in your notes.
Yeah.
I'm curious about how you kind of feel about this whole situation. Because I know you got some feelings and I want you to share.
Yeah, I think a few things. One of the most common arguments I hear from pieces people who support bills like this is that they shouldn't have to change their vocabulary for what they're calling a mental illness. But what we have here is exactly an example of that. They're saying that sex and gender are synonyms, which they are not. And they're saying that they are binary, which they are not. And I won't explain that anymore because I shouldn't, but people who should have, and the information is available for these lawmakers to know by now that those things aren't the same. So they are changing their vocabulary and expecting us to do the same because of their narcissistic personality disorder. And that's not to say anything negative about people within PD. It's just to say something negative about the people who are, pushing bills like this through and laws like this through, because it's just another way to say, I see myself in the way that I live as the default way. And anything that diverges from this is like wrong or needs correction. And so we're going to codify that in law so that we can now force other people to to live the way that we want, or to not live the way that we don't like, or however they view it. And I think that's all that it really is.
So do you think it's a combination of comfort and also appealing to the constituents that happen to be bigots and don't understand, gender and sexual education? Or do you think it is, because I think our natural knee-jerk reaction is to be like, religion, this is religion. Or do you think it is a combination of wanting the votes and also, that sort of, not understanding? Because you can be not understand what it's like to be a trans person and not be religious.
Yes,
and go back to like biology or whatever.
So I think, and I've said before, and I will maintain, I think there are probably more politicians than we think that don't really believe the things that they are proposing or that they are advocating for in their duties as like politicians, because they just know that like, okay, this is the group that I'm going to try to get the votes for. They commit to one and they're like, okay, this is what that group likes, so I'm going to try to get the votes in that group. And then if you start all of a sudden switching to the other side and like you were saying like more Democrat things and then you start saying more Republican things or vice versa, it's going to be harder to get as many people. So I think they're just saying what they know their voters want to hear so that they can keep the votes when they're up for re-election.
No, and I think that's a really good point, because I think at this point it is going where the wind is blowing rather than what is right, rather than what science, and also like even if it was just okay, let's just put it aside. Like let's just say science was not a part of gender ideology. Let's just say that people just want to choose. They want to live the way that they want to live. That doesn't hurt anybody. What does it matter? Because again, as we talked about, previously this week, about how, facts don't change people's, opinions of things. So should it be live and let live? So we're not pushing certain ideologies onto other people, that we allow this, rather if it's based on scientific fact or not. Tracy, I want to go back to you because you kind of, Kelley brought up Senator Bisignano. If I am saying your name wrong, I am so sorry.
Hey, that's a tough one, man, right? Bisignano? Yeah, it's a tough one.
Bisignano. I pronounce things phonetically. Like you don't agree with some of the things they said. So I'm curious what your opinion is on that.
So with Senator Bisignano, I probably disagree with a lot of things that he, with a lot of positions that he holds with respect to his faith. But he's clearly got a good head on his shoulders about this particular issue. He's righteously indignant, righteously furious, and I'm feeling the exact same way. He calls out the exact things that I have a problem with, the harm that is being demonstrably shown to be happening. And people just don't care. They just don't. So I'm sure Senator Bisignano and I could have a wonderful conversation about his faith, but I just do not. You're not going to get us to disagree on this. I'll forward everything he said.
No, and I think that's great. And because, listen, y'all out there that follow us over here at the Atheist Community of Austin, religion's not our thing, obviously. But I when we were living, I know, Kelly, shocking, I know, but
Me and Kelly at the same
I'm
time.
kind of taking should we be picking our battles? And, I'm presenting this to you, my wonderful panelists, and also to the audience. I would love to hear you in the comment section. Please help the algorithm. but there is a thing about when we're talking about people of faith that are aligning with our values. We have to, do we align with them? Because that's really important, because at the end of the day, human rights is what we're talking about. And even though we can debate about philosophy, we should be aligning on the things that allow other people to live comfortably and happily. Kelly, I can see you're making faces.
I'm always making
Please.
faces.
I know, but you can offer your opinion on what I
Makes you
just
look like I'm
said,
paying
or if you want to
attention.
expand on what we're talking about when, in particular, and when we're talking about Iowa and this fucking bullshit.
One of the things I want to add to what's been said already is the reasons for doing this, right? And let's face it, who's been in charge of the government in Iowa for the last 50 years? The GOP. And who has not fixed the problems facing the regular Iowa resident for the last 50 years? The GOP. So what they are doing here, and what they are doing all across the country, because this is not the only state where something like this is trying to get passed, and will not be the only one, right? What they are doing here is they're finding an excuse and scapegoating a marginalized group of people. We could have a bunch of nice things, but those people over there are keeping us from doing it. That's why we haven't made the state run good, because those people are fucking it all up for us, right? And we've seen this throughout history. Many groups of people have done it for centuries. If it's not a racial group or a religious group or some kind of social group, as now, there's always some group that is fucking it all up for somebody. And it's always a smaller, marginalized group that doesn't have the ability to stand up for itself. And that's what we're seeing played out again.
And again. So, Eli, you mentioned the 5 Republicans that actually voted against this. And I would really like to hear, I would like to hear, because you wrote some stuff about it, and I would like to hear your, why that struck you, and also as well, your kind of opinion on it.
Just because, that goes against what you would expect, right? This is a pretty clearly GOP sort of favoring policy. I don't know more than that. The article said there were 5 House Republicans who joined the Democrats in voting against the bill. Shout out to those 5. Thanks for at least trying. But it passed, and then Governor Reynolds went ahead and signed it the next day. So it doesn't seem like those votes against it mattered. But there was something said a little bit ago, and a few things said throughout the episode that have reminded me of this is sort of basically what happens when you adopt a worldview, kind of like I said earlier, that places yourself at as the default. And what they're doing at this point is they're taking anything that like I said, diverges from that and saying, you don't deserve to be protected anymore. We are not going to protect you because you're wrong. And I think that's just it is disguising. And I have hope, just like Tracy and Kelley said, that this will get shut down now that it has been signed and it is something that can be challenged. I hope that it will be. But as far as the question that you asked, should we pick our battles? Yeah, in some cases, maybe. I think this is one that we should pick. I think this is one we should be loud about, because being silent can also be weaponized against us. When we're silent in times that we shouldn't be, that can, that can later become a weapon. So like when you can speak up and when you should speak up, where you know of harm, speak up, regard that as your own.
Well, there's the old adage that all it takes for evil to triumph is for a good man to say nothing. So, that's one of those things. Tracy, what do you think the long-term consequences of these hate bills will be?
So, my thoughts on what the long-term consequences of the hate bills is, frankly, I've been looking in the future because I have that power. I am a nonprofit.
Are you a psychic?
Yeah, I'm a psychic.
So did you look into the non-future?
I looked into the non-future. The only thing
everything's happening now. Of course, so everything is now. Because time is illusion.
A major concern that I'm seeing is just further division. And division can only get so deep within a country before the country itself divides. And I don't want that to happen. I have this vision in my head of what America should be. And it's not a place where we make laws that are definitely targeting a specific group of people. It's a place where we make laws that benefit everyone. And I know that might be a little bit of a pie in the sky ideology, but like the no murdering thing, that was a good one. That helped a lot.
That's a pretty good one.
That's you know what? Let's just start with that.
I'm on board with no murdering.
Everybody.
Just
don't
change,
do that.
just work on it from there. I don't see why all the laws we have can't benefit everyone. If it's not justice if there are people who are always being harmed. It's just not. We're going to keep getting more and more divided, and if we can't get a hold of it, our country itself won't survive.
Kelley, the same question to you. What do you think the consequences of these things will be, the hate bills?
Hopefully nothing. Just like, remember all the well, you probably don't, but all the porn bills that tried to get passed in the 80s. And the reason you don't remember them is because they all got struck down. So hopefully that'll happen with all of these too.
I don't remember them because I was an egg.
Yeah, but you don't remember
them
because they're not being enforced today. Because they were all struck down, and that was the point, right?
I almost made that same argument, and I was like, nope, he's right.
I am going to just let this little hint on to our people that live in states where you have to put in your identification to look at porn. Just use a VPN. You don't have to do that. So I'm just going to put that little nugget into your brains. Eli, what do you think the long-term consequences are going to be of these hate bills?
I think I couldn't say better than Tracy and Kelley have said already. Hopefully nothing, but I think more division. I think a combination of exactly what the two gentlemen before me said.
So
before we end this segment, I just want to say one thing. This might not affect you, the person watching right now, the viewer, but it probably affects somebody that you know. And we have to, are you willing to let friends and family be treated like this? I think we have come to a crossroads in civil rights in the United States, and we're all going to have to ask ourselves if we're willing to stand up for our fellow human beings.
I couldn't say it better myself, Kelley. Thank you. So if you want to learn more about how to stand up for your fellow human beings, find a video to click about the nonprofits, either here or here. Also, pray to the algorithm gods and like and subscribe and comment. We really like that. So do those things as well. And we'll see you in the next segment. Bye.